Well, here we are, it's a breezy day in early autumn, looking for things that we can draw. And what is drawing basically? Well, drawing basically is taking the three-dimensional world and representing it in two dimensions. So why not look for something that's two-dimensional to start with? And what do we have here that's of course in a three-dimensional world but is two-dimensional? Leaves, of course. It won't take leaves off the trees, but I think we can take a few off the ground. And the colours of the leaves in autumn of course can be quite wonderful. There's a beauty. We'll take some of these back and we'll do some work with them. I'll have to check because I'm not great on tree identification, but I think this is beech. There are certainly plenty of leaves. And these are blackberry leaves, and as the year progresses they become a deeper and deeper red. Keep an eye out for those if you want to do some interesting artwork, as we will explore soon. Okay, so now we're here at the kitchen table. We've got our leaves and I've got my watercolor box out. I'll talk more about art materials later. Some water and a couple of brushes and a pencil that's a propelling pencil, as I call them, or a retractable pencil, so we don't have to do any sharpening. And of course, well, paper, watercolor paper. I actually got that from W.H. Smith in the UK. It's 300 gram and it was only £4.99 for 12 large sheets. I've cut it down and I'm actually going to use approximately 8x6 size. And the other thing we need is just some kitchen roll for blotting. The other thing you'll notice is that the leaves are not terribly flat and two-dimensional. We were saying we want them two-dimensional, so we must use our two-dimension machine. Here's the two-dimension machine, otherwise known as an iron. I'll do this while filming, just on a very low heat. Children, get your mum to let you do this, and just gently iron them on the back, flatten the leaves out. You could also press them in the traditional way with a book, but hey, this is a bit quicker. You'll see why we want them as flat as possible very soon. Okay, now we've got our three leaves that I've chosen, made as two-dimensional as possible by flattening them, arranged on our paper, and that's how I want the picture to look when it's finished, with a drop shadow. And obviously the reason for having two-dimensional as possible is to be able to draw around them, which is what I'm going to start doing now. Okay, so very carefully, do one at a time. Now you won't be able to do all the little jiggity jaggedy edges, but that doesn't matter because we're going to do that by eye afterwards. Just getting the shape. The shape is very important. The silhouette of many things when you're drawing is so important and makes it convincing. Now you might think a leaf is an easy shape, and in some ways it is, but you try it. It's quite subtle shape to it. Here we are. And what I'll do is I'll lay the leaves as I do them in the same position onto another sheet, which we will use as our reference. Continue to carefully draw around this. As I say, I'll do the edges in a minute, as you'll see. You probably can't see the lines very clearly on the video. But we'll be strengthening them very, very soon. Okay. So here we are with the leaves on another sheet of paper in front for reference. I'm now going to start doing my drawing quite loosely, but I want to get, I've got the shape and I want to get these edges of the leaves. Now I use the lines in our watercolour painting, the pencil lines are almost like the skeleton, the structure of the drawing, of the painting. Now I'm going to put in some of the textures that we can see. I'll just do this one leaf and then I'll finish the others momentarily. Not worrying too much about shading itself, I'm just really thinking in terms of starting to give an underlying form to some of these darker colours and darker areas. One of the things that many people who start watercolour painting do is that they make their paintings much too light and wishy-washy, and that's something I'll be covering in other videos with other media and techniques and bits of secret knowledge. Although, is it secret? No, perhaps just you have to be creative with ways of looking at the world as well. I'll continue with this and then we'll come back to the completed drawing to start the painting. Okay, now I've finished that drawing. Let's move the leaves over there. Bring our drawing central. And we're going to start applying watercolour now that we've got our basic under drawing, our skeleton of the painting as it were. I'm actually only going to be using one, well, the basic palette that I use a lot of the time is up at this corner on my watercolour palette. I use white, which a lot of people frown on, but not until the end of the painting, as you'll see. Ultramarine blue, a green, that's actually Hooker's green, a lemon yellow, a ochre, yellow ochre, a red, vermilion, and this deeper red. That noise was a newspaper being delivered. Yeah, that crimson is Alizarian crimson. I hope I pronounced that right. You get it in most watercolour boxes. Amazon sell a good set, as you'll see if you're at my website. And this colour here, which is an extra one I've stuck in because I wanted the artist quality one, that's the only reason. That's burnt umber, which I tend to use a lot. We're going to talk more about colour mixing in later tutorials, but I just want to talk about it as I do it so that you can get a result straight away with these, painting these leaves in this way. I'm going to start by actually painting the middle leaf, which we're going to use that Alizarian crimson because it's actually quite a dark red colour, as you can see. Now don't worry too much about getting the colour accurate at first. It's far more important to get the tone accurately. So I'm going to just show me preparing some colour. I'm going to use here a scrap of watercolour paper for testing colours on. I'll just apply some water first of all to my... This brush I'm using incidentally is size 6 Proline. I'm going to put in a little bit of the bright red, of the Alizarian crimson. Quite strong, stronger than you think. Look at the colour there, and it dries much lighter. So we actually want quite a bit in. So that's going to be like my base colour. Washing out the brush. But also, what I'm going to use with that to control the tone is some of the blue. This is the ultramarine blue, which I use an awful lot of. Now, a little bit of colour theory. If we apply the blue, we mix it with the crimson, I'm just getting it there. You'll get a darker colour, as you'll see, darker purpley colour obviously, but then the other magic ingredient. I don't normally separate them out like this, but this is just so that I can show you how you create. I do create base colours in the mixing area. This is the burnt umber, in other words, a dark brown colour. Now, if you think of brown, as people say, oh, how do you make brown? How do you mix brown? Think of brown as orange with a bit of blue in it. Although this obviously is pre-mixed, which is what you want. Now, so if that's orange with a bit of blue in it, that means it consists, in the colour spectrum ways, of being red and yellow. And if you mix red and yellow and blue, you get a dark colour. And that's, rather than use black, that's the way I produce my dark colours. I actually put blue in with the burnt umber. So I'm going to do that now just on a small scale and put that over here for you to see. And you see that colour. And if you want it to be slightly cooler, you add a bit more blue to it. Okay, so there's a range of colours just for using those. And we'll start work now on the actual painting. I wanted to show you that so you can see what I'm doing and understand what I'm doing, as it were, in the background. So just to recap, I'm sort of labouring the point. Make some quite strong colours of these colours to start with that you're using, which is the Alizarian Crimson. I know I've put a bit of the burnt umber in there, but the ultramarine blue, I'll put some more in there, and the burnt umber over here. Now they will get kind of mixed up and messed up, and then you just strengthen them and go back as you work. So after talking about the reds and blues and the darks, I've actually realised that I'm going to start by, there's a lighter green colour inside there, so we're going to actually do that green base colour. Now this Hooker's green is an extremely strong green, a real strong green, which is probably not yellow enough, so that's where we use the yellow. I don't worry about it messing your colours up, because you just apply more water to it and wash it up. They will always mix together. Okay, that's probably not yellow enough. Okay, that's quite an acidy, strong yellow, so it'll show through quite well. Okay, so here we go, using the same brush and that quite strong green. This is almost like an underpainting now, which we want to show through when we apply the other colours. Very, very loose movement, applying the paint quite very quickly. Incidentally, when it comes to applying our next wash, which you will do, you really want to have this wash dry. And of course you have to sometimes wait for watercolour to dry, or you use a time machine, as I will show you, or rather a saving time machine, which I'm going to use now. So here's my saving time machine, which is actually a hairdryer, as you can see. And I've just blown my leaves away, but I'll put them back. Ready for the next wash. Now I'm going to start applying that deep red. I always use the kitchen roll to blot off some of the colour. Start very loosely again, applying the colour. It's not dark enough yet, believe it or not. We're going to build it up in several washes, several layers. Notice there's try and produce the effect of, or the speckling on the leaf there. You won't get it exactly right. It's about creating an illusion, sort of a simulation of what's there. What strengthens the effect is the fact that your shape is accurate, which we know it is because we traced around the leaf. You could actually use some spattering, that is just flicking the colour onto the paper if you want, creating some of those textures, but not 100% necessary. Okay, it's really an overall texture that I'm developing here. We will enhance it further. Now I've mixed up another fairly dark colour in the way that we spoke about and the way I demonstrated. And we're going to overlay some more red in a minute to bring more readiness to it. Readiness? I think that's a word now, isn't it? Just decided. I'm hinting at some of the veins and stuff in the leaves here, but we can actually go back in with pencil later, and then we will do some things on some of the leaves. We'll do some things with the white to add some extra bits of texturing. Right, I'll do for the moment with that. While it's still wet, I want to come in with some of my crimson. And what it does is it creates more texture because it starts to push some of the still damp colour around and away. So you get sort of bleeding into each other effect, which is nice, but the watercolour is actually working for you then. Knock the camera stand, sorry about that. I'm dabbing off paint off my brush if it's too strong, that's what I'm doing. I'm going to complete the one leaf and then go on to do the others, so you'll get the idea. Okay, we'll let that dry again, and I'm going to apply another layer, as you'll see. Okay, and now I'm going to, our sort of second to last step for this leaf really, I'm going to come in with some blue, ultramarine blue, like that, and it needs to be completely dry, and because the leaf is slightly curled on one side, and also there's still quite a bit of texture there, but using the blue gives you this wonderful, over the other colours, gives you this wonderful effect of the light shining through the colours, which won't come up that well on the video, to be honest, but it will be very noticeable to people looking at your painting. You probably see better on the scan image I'm going to put onto the blog. Now you can go quickly over the painting and it won't disturb the paint underneath, and apply what they call a glaze very quickly. And we're going to do some other bits in a minute. want to do more with the greens in there. Okay, that'll do for the moment. Okay, and now I'm using a slightly controversial method because I'm quite happy to use white on a painting, and in this occasion I'm using white mixed with some of our very, oh, that's the postman this time, mixed with some of our very light green colour, because I want to bring in some more of the impression of more of those, the leaves green where it's still breaking through. You can go on for ages doing this, it's great fun. But not too, don't overdo this part of it. Okay, now I want a lighter, almost white now. I want to bring out some of the light on the edge of the stem. This may not be visible in the video very well. I'll pick out the edges of some of these bits and pieces, or the veins of the leaves in fact. I'm using the smaller brush, which is the size 007. I'm only using 2 brushes for these paintings. Okay, that'll do for the moment. Okay, I'm reasonably happy with that, but it needs strengthening in some areas, and what I'm going to do is go back in with the pencil, which you can do that, do anything you want, and strengthen some of the edges and put back in, because they're no longer terribly visible, using quite a lot of pressure, some of the texture that we'd applied earlier, and illustrating the veins of the leaf, just making them more visible. I'm also going to put in just bits more of textures up here. Lovely jubbly. And if you're watching in the USA, you might not know what lovely jubbly is. It's from a television program here in the UK, famous one. Perhaps you do know Fools and Horses. Right. Okay, I'm going to leave that for a moment. I'm going to crack on to the other leaves using the same method, which I won't bother videoing for the moment, and then we'll look at the finishing off. Okay, so now there's the basic painting done of our 3 leaves. There's one final thing left to do, which brings them into even more back into the 3D world, as it were, to add a drop shadow. Remember I was saying that you use burnt umber and ultramarine blue to make dark colours and a grey. Well, you mix that up, but with a particularly blue, nudged particularly to the blue side of things. Let me just show you that colour. That's the colour I'm going to use. It's ultramarine blue with a little bit of burnt umber in it. Now the first thing that you do, and now here we have our leaves and they're painted. There's one more thing left to do to bring our 2-dimensional leaves back into the 3-dimensional world. We'll add a drop shadow, and the way that I do that is to paint water first of all around the leaves, just to dampen them. And I'm going to have the shadow coming to the bottom right, so the light is coming, although it's fairly subtle light in this because I'm just using a diffuse light. The light is coming more from the left, so I'm just putting some water in like that, and we give that a few seconds to dry, or to go You need to hold it up and look. You won't be able to see on the thing, but you can actually see when it stops shining and starts to just slightly glisten. It's then the paper is damp and the wash will spread hopefully. But we can control it as we do it. The colour we're going to use is a grey, but made from, whoops, sorry, knocked the camera, a mixture of burnt umber, ultramarine blue with a little bit of burnt umber in. See, there's the pure ultramarine. There it is with burnt umber in. Let me just see how that's looking. Okay, I think we can start down here. Just start to add in our drop shadow. You can tip it to let it run a bit. Make that more diffuse and disappear. You can control it as it goes. Like a lot of things in watercolour, don't be afraid of it. You're not after perfection, you're after the effect very often. And using water you can then blend. And I'm going to allow some to come round to the other side. I didn't damp that side, but you can do it on the fly as you go. Get rid of any harsh edges. Gone a bit too far out on that one, so we're going to blot it out. As I say, don't be afraid of watercolour. I think that's looking better. Well, there we are. All that remains to do now is to have a nice cup of tea and enjoy the art that you've made. Oh, and don't forget to sign it, of course. Let's work out the best place. There we are. Great fun. I'm sure you'll enjoy doing that. Bye for now. See you in the next tutorial.